One of the first projects that most new woodworkers take on is a cutting board. We've all built them. It's almost like a rite of passage. But let's be honest, the cutting board market is flooded. There are thousands of boards out there that all look the same, so the competition is fierce. But there are a few that stand out, the kind that stop you mid-scroll and make you say, wait, somebody paid that much for a cutting board? In this video, I'm gonna be building two different cutting boards, both designed by talented woodworkers that actually sell them for these prices. One goes for around $100 and the other sells for $1,000. I'll build both side by side to see what really separates that $100 board versus the $1,000 one. And we'll find out if that higher end board is really worth it. Now, real quick before I get started, I did want to give a big shout out to the actual woodworkers that make and sell these boards on their website. The Day Tripper is the $100 board, and that is built and sold by handy dandy Brandy. And our $1,000 Waffle design board is sold by Ryan over at West Coast Boards. I'll link them below so you can check out their work. I'm gonna start with the Waffle pattern board because it's got like 8 different glue ups that go into it. And FYI, I don't have a step-by-step tutorial on how to build this board. I've literally got a TikTok video that I found where Ryan builds this board in a very sped up video. So I'm really hoping that he didn't skip any steps, because if he did, I'm screwed. This board's got 3 different species of wood. It's got cherry, maple, and walnut in it. So I'm gonna get all of these dug out and get everything cut down to like 3 feet in length. That way it makes the milling process a little bit easier on the jointer and the planer, and it'll speed things up. All right, I think that is more than enough wood for a single cutting board. At least I've got plenty in case I screw this thing up, which is very likely to happen. We're almost ready for our first glue up. The next step is going to be head over to the table saw and cut each species up into strips and then glue them up together. So I believe the walnut gets cut into like a 3/4 inch strip from what I can see. And then the other 2 species, the cherry and the maple, will also get cut into a little bit larger strips, glued up together, and then we'll let those sit overnight. All right, time for some glue ups. We got about 2 hours left in the day, perfect to get these glued up in the clamps and let them sit over the weekend because today's Friday, so we'll be back on Monday. But let's go. If you guys don't know what this is yet, this is the Clamp Companion from Timber River Tool Company. It is an awesome addition, especially if you've got a smaller shop for your glue ups. It mounts right to your wall and it attaches to your existing pipe clamps. And after your glue up, you're able to move these up and down. That way you can fix your glue up like this, you can change your angles and then drop it flat against your wall. I can do my glue ups, flatten them up against the wall, and I still have room to work in this area because this is right behind my table saw, so it gives me a lot of space to continue operating on the rest of my project. So we've only got 1 set of clamp companions, so I'm gonna do the rest of the glue ups old school style on the workbench with some pipe clamps. All right, I'm gonna get all of these clamped up and then call it a weekend. We're gonna let this sit and dry all weekend long. Come back on Monday, get back to work. It's Monday morning. These sat in the clamps all weekend. It's time to get them out of the clamps, move on to the next round of glue ups for the waffle pattern board, which is glue up number 5 and 6 already. But it has me wondering, 5 and 6 glue ups and we're not even halfway there yet. Is this board actually gonna be worth it financially? So we're gonna break the numbers down at the end to see what it really comes out to for these boards, but time will tell. So before we move on to the next round of glue ups, we're going to run everything through the planer real quick. That's gonna flatten down any of these imperfections, because when you've got 12 strips glued up at 36 inches long, there's bound to be some high and low spots. So this planer is gonna knock everything down, make it nice and flat, because our next glue up is going to be stacking a walnut on top of one of the cherries and then stacking the other walnut on top of a maple. First glue up of this round is going to be our cherry board, along with our 3/4 inch thick Walnut. So there was two different thicknesses of walnut board on the video. This one is about 3/4 inches thick, and the other one's closer to 1 inch. Hopefully I got those right, because that may play a pivotal role in the actual shape of this end grain board. So anytime I've got walnut involved in a glue up, I always use BOSSDOG's brown glue. It dries dark brown, very close to the color of walnut. So whether it be walnut to walnut or walnut to another species like cherry, that brown's gonna fill in any little imperfections and make it blend right in with that walnut. If you guys don't know, I actually launched BOSSDOG out of this very workshop almost 2 years ago. So if you guys want to try out BOSSDOG for yourself or just support our small business, head over to this QR code. It'll take you right to the website. You can check out all of our products and order from there. Let's get back to it. Now we add 1,000,000 clamps, just to make sure this thing is squeezed all the way down, all the way across this board. The last thing we want would be gaps, especially in this middle section, so we gotta be very careful when we're adding these clamps here. Please hold on. Ah. Glue up 5 and 6 complete for the waffle pattern board. Time to move on to the day tripper board from Handy Dandy Brandy. This will be the first glue up on this board. We'll still probably finish it before we finish this one. So this board has maple and walnut, and just like the first board, they get glued up individually as their own board, and then we'll move on to the next step after that. Our panels are nice and glued up, but I need to trim this one down so that it's the same size as the walnut, because they need to be the exact same size when we start our next step. So I need to take about 4 inches off of this guy. So we'll jump over here on the table saw real quick and do that. All right, cool. So now we are going to head over here real quick to the planer, get everything nice and flat so that we can take them over to the bandsaw. This design seems pretty straightforward. Basically, what we're gonna do is take some double-sided tape, lay it in between each panel, sandwich them together. Then we're gonna head over to the bandsaw and cut, for lack of better words, squigglies down the length of the board, and then repeat that 2 or 3 times. I say it looks easy. That's probably because Brandy's done this 1,000,000 times and it's second nature to her. So let's hope that I can cut straight squiggly lines that look decent and give us a good pattern. So here's the thing. I don't trust my freehand capabilities on the bandsaw quite as much as Brandy probably does. So I'm going to trace out very vaguely the lines that I kind of want to follow. I'm not going to try to stay on them perfectly, but it'll give me a guide just to stay in line. That way I know I'm not going way crazy by the time I get to the end of the board. I think I did a decent enough job that this, at least the first glue up's gonna turn out pretty good. So now we've got to get the tape off, swap everything around. So we'll be alternating between walnut, maple, and then clamp them up. And tomorrow we're gonna repeat the same process, but we're gonna turn the boards sideways. And then we'll be on to our final glue up. All right, back to the waffle pattern board. This is going to be glue up number 7 for this board. We're gonna get these clamps off of here, and then head over to the table saw and make some cuts. This is where it gets a little dicey because I have to make precise cuts on this, and I'm just going off the video. So let's hope we get it right the first time and don't have to rebuild this thing. I'm not really liking this cut that we've got to make here, but we've got the blade maxed out basically at 45 degrees with like 3/4 of an inch of material up against the fence. This first cut's gonna be kind of like a throwaway cut because we need that initial 45-degree edge. So we're gonna give it a go. All right, that wasn't terrible. Now we've got our first 45-degree edge, and now we're just gonna keep going all the way down the line, see how many strips we can get, and then we'll move on to the maple. It's cut a little bit differently. I think we're moving and grooving, baby. Looking back at the original video, there's actually 2 more cuts that I need to make on the cherry and walnut boards. So basically, I need to cut off that 45-degree angle so that we've got a flat top and bottom. Really, the only reason that you make those 45-degree cuts initially is to get like a triangle-shaped walnut section on the top of the cherry board. You'll see here in a second when I get it all laid out. All right, finally got all of these pieces done. A lot of off-camera cutting. You didn't want to see all the details, but we've got 3 different pieces here. We've got the walnut and maple, and then we've got right next to that our cherry, and then our walnut at the 45-degree angle, and then in between each of those, we've got a 1/4-inch strip of maple. That's gonna separate each of our waffles. Now I'm gonna get everything lathered up in plenty of glue because we don't want any separation, and I want this to be nice and tight. The squeeze out on this is going to be epic. All right, down to the final glue up for the $100 day tripper boards. These things look pretty sweet as is. I think you could sell that. I'm pretty sure people probably do. But this time we're gonna run it through the planer, flatten it out again, double-sided tape them back together, and then we're gonna turn them this way. Instead of lengthwise, we're gonna run them widthwise and make similar cuts, then swap them around before the glue up, and that should be it. After that, it's just sanding, finish, and hoping we did it right. All right, let's lay this pattern out. See if we did this right. Oh, no. It's repairable. I'm just gonna glue it back together on our next glue up and act like nothing happened. All right, the $100 board is in the clamps for the final glue up. Let's head back over and get onto the waffle pattern board. All right, successful glue up here. Boom, the thing is like 40 pounds. I'm gonna head over to the drum sander. That way we can knock down all of these high spots. You can see these maple strips are about a 1/4 inch taller than the rest of the board. I just didn't cut them down to the right size yesterday. I know what you're thinking, what if I don't have a drum sander? Well, I'm gonna show you on the next glue up how we flatten this board without a drum sander. You can do it in a small shop, easy peasy. Let's get going. Final cut will be to cross cut this into about 2.5 inch strips on the table saw. The depth of this cut's gonna determine the height of the board, so 2.5 inches seems like a pretty solid size board to me. Now, after this, we're gonna head over and lather up with some glue. You know we've got to bust out the entire gallon. If we made it this far, I gotta make sure everything is covered in glue. Black Friday is like a month away. I'm gonna be hosting a YouTube Live. We're gonna be offering crazy discounts on BOSSDOG glue. I'm gonna be giving away a ton of bottles. I'm also gonna be giving away a ton of tools just as a thank you for supporting our channel. And if you don't wanna buy anything, just come and hang out. It's gonna be a great time. We're gonna be talking, going over a ton of stuff, doing Q&As. Can't wait to see you guys there. Waffle board in the clamps for its final glue up. I'm back over here at the day tripper. These things have been sitting in the clamps for over a day now. I'm ready to pull them out. We're gonna run these through the planer, flatten everything down so it's nice and smooth, and then I'm gonna trim off this excess here to make it even with this side. When I originally made the cut on the bandsaw, I was a little wide on the end, but we'll even it out and it'll look sweet. Super impressed with how this turned out. Really, really easy to build. Not a super difficult build. Not a lot of material goes into it. So I think the profit margin on this is going to be pretty high. Final glue up on the waffle board is done. It came out really sweet. There's a couple gaps on the edges here. So what we're gonna do is trim off both ends till I get past those gaps. You can already see the three-dimensional look if you stand from the side. So after we get this thing flattened and finish on it, this is gonna be a sweet board. After our previous glue up, I told you guys at the drum sander, I was gonna show you a way to flatten your boards, even if you don't have a big drum sander or a wide belt sander or a planer that your board will fit in. So this is the large flattening jig from Logan over at Newman Specials Woodworking. He makes these, he invented this design. It's really, really cool. He ships them in a flat pack and you assemble them with like 6 or 8 screws and you're ready to go. Let me show you how this thing works really quickly. So you lock that in here, tighten these two down, and it also comes with a router plate that mounts to your router. This slides right here and you just work it up and down, taking off the material. It's going all the way down the board like this. Super cool design. All right, final step is going to be some handles on the bottom side. I've got this very basic template. It's the same thing Ryan used in his video. I'm gonna clamp that on right here and then use our plunge router to route out that handle. As soon as that finish touches that wood and that pattern and color just pop, it's one of the best feelings of all time. I can't think of another aspect of woodworking that gives you more instant gratification than when you apply a finish to a cutting board that you've been working on for days. Both of these boards were super fun to build. They're really unique designs, but which one makes more sense for you if you're trying to run a business? I tallied up the numbers on both builds, so we're gonna break it down real quick, starting with our $100 Day Tripper board. Now this board sells for $115, but you do get 2 boards out of the build, so we're gonna bump that up to $230. Now with material costs and 2 hours of labor at $50 an hour, our total cost into this board is $170.28. That leaves us a profit of $59.72 or 26% profit. Now let's look at the waffle pattern board. A lot more material cost, a lot more time goes into this build, but is it worth it? So with material and 5 hours of labor at $50 an hour, I've got a total cost into this board $639.29. Now it sells for $1,000, so that leaves us a profit of $360.71 or 36%. So which board would you build if you're looking to make more profit? The waffle pattern board. If you guys like this build, be sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know what you guys want to see me build next week.